Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to divide up our circle differently because 30-degree angles isn't always what they want. There's another important one they want, which is 45-degree angles. So in other words, let's take this circle and cut each quadrant in half. And then I'm going to draw the other markings as well. And so what we've got going on here is, if you think what's halfway to 90, that would be 45 degrees. So this amount is 45 degrees, and we're going to add 45 degrees each time. So we have our 45-degree angle marking here. We have our 90-degree angle marking here. Another 45, if you add 45, would be 135 as our angle degree marking here. And then halfway around is another 45, which is 180 degrees, which we know is halfway around a circle. So we're starting with 0 degrees. We're working our way counterclockwise through 45 degrees at a time. And notice what that did. It broke our top half of our circle into 4 pieces. And if you think of pizza, you've just divided your top half of your pizza into 4 pieces. And so this is where the fourths comes in. We're going to count by fourths because radian-wise, you've got 0 radians starts here. Then if you go all the way around to 180 degrees, you've got pi radians when you've gone halfway around, and that is because all the way around, we've already established, is 2 pi radians. And so halfway around would be pi radians. So because 0 is here and pi is over here at 180, then we have divided our pi radians into 4 pieces. And so this would be 1/4 of the way to pi. This would be 2/4 of the way to pi. This would be 3/4 of the way to pi. And this would be 4/4 of the way to pi, which is the same as 1 pi. So we're going to put those measurements as we've gone, 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 4/4 of the way to the pi radians that we already established was over at the 180 degrees. So now what we want to do is just reduce those and write them in the final form out to the sides. So 45 degrees matches pi over 4 radians. 90 degrees matches pi over 2 if we reduce pi over 2 radians, and we've already established that on the previous video. And then you go 3/4 can't be reduced, so we'll just call that 3 pi over 4. And that's how many radians equal 135 degrees. And then 4/4 is 1 pi. So we've already reduced that one. Then you want to continue that trend like we did on the 30-degree angle ones, and we want to divide our bottom half of our circle into fourths as well. So we have 4 pieces of pizza, if you will, on our bottom half of our pizza. And we continue our counting. So we were at 4/4, and now we're at 5/4. Now we go another fourth, and we're at 6/4. And we go another fourth, we're at 7/4. And we go another fourth, and we're at 8/4. You'll notice that 8/4 reduces to 2 pi, which is where we wanted to be when we've gone all the way around. So the reason I count by fourths is so I can continue all the way around, and I don't reduce them because I want to see that that was 4/4, so I know the next one is 5/4, the next one is 6/4, 7/4, and 8/4. So now we have all of our fourths from 1/4 all the way to 8/4. Now we can reduce out to the edges here. So we had pi, and then the next one will be 5 pi over 4 radians. That one doesn't reduce. 6 pi over 4 does reduce to 3 pi over 2, which is what we've always had in that spot. Then we have 7 pi over 4, doesn't reduce. And then, like we said, 8 pi over 4 reduces to 2 pi. So now we have labeled all of our 45-degree angles all the way around as radians, and counting by fourths. And notice that is 45-degree angles, so let's go ahead and finish out the rest of our 45-degree angles. So if you add 45 degrees to 180, you get 225 degrees. Then if you add another 45 to that, you get 270 degrees, which is where we've always been when we got to that point. Then you add another 45, you end up at 315 degrees, and you add another 45, and you're at 360 degrees. So those are the coordinating degree measurements with their radian measurements as well, and that's how you count by fourths for angles. Now that we've figured out how to label all the angles, we're going to move on to labeling the dots on the edge of the circle. And we already know the 4 key ones, but we're going to get all the ones in between on the 30-degree angles, the 45-degree angles, the 60-degree angles, and we're going to go all the way around. So continue on to part 3 video.